listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
We often talk about what you need to do to prepare for the NACS Show. What we're going to talk about today is what you do when you leave the NACS Show, because that's just as important. How do you harvest all those ideas? How do you harvest all those contacts? And how do you use the NACS Show to build out a strategic plan for the coming year? To have that conversation, we're joined by Jeff Miller, who is chairman and CEO of Miller's Energy, and one of the industry icons who has been to dozens of NACS shows. And he's going to give us a rundown on some of the things that you might want to prepare for as you come back from the NACS show, or even if you didn't go to the NACS show, how you can take advantage of some of the things that took place there. So welcome, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. How are you today?
So industry icon, how do you like that definition?
Industry icon, I guess that's better than sage.
You forgot to mention that Jeff used to be a chairman at NACS too.
Well, that's part of
our
icon.
board in many capacities.
Right.
And then he wasn't chairman anymore, and we just sent him off into the pasture.
That's right. I rode off into the sunset with all the other chairmen.
On your unicorn with the rainbows in the background.
That's it. Well, no, I'm excited to talk about this because this was always, what do they say? Start with the end in mind. And so that was something that we always took to heart at our store, at our stores and at our business. We typically brought about 4 to 5 people to the show. And the way we planned, it's hard to talk about afterwards without talking about how we went. And
right.
The way we went was, it was really more surgical than broad. We each sort of picked areas that we were interested in and went, and explored those and then broadened out from there. What I typically did was I would walk the whole show, and it was really more to get a feel for the trends. I think the best example of that was, I think, one year there were it might have been Red Bull and 5 Hour Energy were the 2 energy things. And then the next year, it was like 2 aisles of dancing girls and monster trucks. And, so it was very clear that energy was going to have a big impact on our industry. And certainly after coming back from that year, we jumped into it as well. The other thing that we would do is, of those who came, mostly we brought either district managers, clearly our marketing people, some operation people. Everybody got to pick an idea. So whenever we came back from the show, we would try to meet within a week of getting back while everything was still fresh. And everybody would talk about what they saw, what education sessions they went to, what they learned, where they thought we should improve our business, what we should be doing better, what we should focus on. And then everybody got one idea that they could own. And so they were empowered to go out and either order the product or, explore a relationship with a particular vendor or whatever and bring it back to the group. Some of those stuck, some of them didn't, but it was, we were able to do more sooner because you had, 4 or 5 people focusing on a particular project or product, as opposed to one person, trying to line up all these different things. So that was probably
your company. You had 30, 40 stores, something around that range.
Yes.
So you'd send 5 people, and then these 5 people would gather, or would it be part of a larger group that would begin to flesh out ideas? Did it start with the 5-ish and then build out from there?
Yes. I mean, we would do a deconstruct afterwards with just the people who went, and kind of flesh out, okay, that's a stupid idea, or that's a really good idea, or, and then if if everybody didn't like your idea, you got to fight for it. And if you fought long enough for it, you got to keep it. And then hopefully it succeeded, because the ribbing you would take afterwards, if it didn't, was probably ceaseless. But it was all good, it was all good fun. It was competitive, and I think it helped us get a lot more done sooner.
So what was the plan for the education sessions, right? Like the expo, obviously it's the excitement. It's the 425,000 square feet of, like you said, trends and new products and things. But before all that happens, there's usually anywhere from 50 to 60 education sessions, which in our last podcast, we had Henry on, and he said, you need to divide and conquer when it comes to the ed sessions, because it doesn't make any sense. Just if you're sending 5 employees, that all 5 sit together in one session when there are so many. So how did folks tend to divide and conquer?
Usually I had a pretty good idea of where we were headed for the following year from a strategic direction, whether it was new software or we're going to build some car washes or whatever it may be. And then, of course, we always had weaknesses that needed to be shored up. So, wherever we had problem spots, if there was sessions discussing those areas, then we'd make sure somebody attended those, or more than one attended those. If there was something, a new area we were looking at going into, then whoever was in that area, if it was say we were going to PDI, or say we were doing a food service initiative or whatever, then we'd make sure we focused on those. And that was pretty much the way we did it. I'm sure we missed a lot of stuff because there's always so much stuff. But in terms of how to get the most out of it for our particular business, we tried to focus in on what the upcoming challenges were, and what, where our sore spots were.
And of course, this year, our trade show is in Las Vegas. And I think a lot of people may presume that it's all fun and games. And yes, it is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun in a work context. When you come back and there's everyone else who didn't go to the NACS show, how do you convey that energy, that excitement that you got all these great ideas with perhaps a perception from those who didn't go that it was just a whole lot of fun and maybe you're just making up ideas or something like that, but that it truly was a way to drive the business forward?
I guess I was involved in NACS governance for 10 years through the executive committee, and then treasurer and chairman, past chairman. And my staff and managers really got to the point where they hated my involvement, because every time I would go, I'd come back and I go, I was great. We saw this. We got to do this. I saw this new thing. We got to do it. We got to do it. And so they learned to regret my involvement with NACS. But it was, I'd like to tell you there was some sort of, management philosophy or something. No, it was just me getting excited, going to these meetings, coming back, and it was all top down.
That is something we hear frequently from people, that the worst moment is when the boss comes back from a NACS show or any other industry show, because they come back with so many ideas, so much energy, and it's like, we got to do this. And it's like, but we're already doing this. We're doing this. And it's like, nope, let's get strategic. Let's kind of go through this process and let's redefine our business. And I heard somebody else at another company talk about how the NACS show fits nicely during the time of the year, because it's October and before the holidays, it gives you a chance to kind of dive in strategically and really be ready for the next year. We all know that convenience stores are busy year round and around the clock, but they tend to be busiest in the summer. So the October timeframe almost allows you to prepare for that 6-month rollout for next summer. But in a lot of ways, it fits nicely in that strategic planning process that a lot of companies do.
Yeah, it really does. The timing is perfect because it forces you to begin to think about next year in October. And from a financial planning standpoint, it's easy because at the end of October you just get to divide by 10 and multiply by 12. But that's neither here nor there. But it does fit nicely into the overall planning because it makes you okay. We got to start thinking about next year because we're going to go to the NACS Show, and then when you get back, you kind of throw that all in the pot. We typically try to have our budgets and goals done by November, but if you talk to our financial folks, they would say they were never really done until the second week in January. But for the most part, we had a pretty good idea where we were headed at that point. So it is a good fit. It's not just products and vendors. It's also about your marketing plans. And that's always something that you're working on in the fourth quarter for the next year. So you come back and you see stuff that you know is going to shape how you're going to market. And so, yeah, it's a good fit.
So, Jeff, you're talking a lot in the past tense. I'm curious.
Host Jeff, not industry icon Jeff.
Right. So just for the audience, what's going on with you? What happened to your company in the last year or so? Where are you at, buddy?
Well, we sold our stores in February of this year. My father and I had did a lot of soul searching, and back in September of 2020, we said, we're really going to have to up our game. In our market, we have Wawa, we have 7-Eleven, Sheetz is on the edge of our market. So we've got some really first-class operators and marketers in our area. And our stores were more 7-Eleven-y than they were Wawa-y. We were more focused on grab and go, quick, in and out, gasoline. And we just felt like, I guess it's time to focus on some other areas. We had moved into commercial real estate pretty heavily, commercial and industrial. And our heating and air conditioning, we started out as a heating oil business with a burner service operation. And we had since turned that into a mechanical contracting, all residential, and it's just growing in leaps and bounds. So we decided that it was time to make a move. That was in September of 2020. My father passed away unexpectedly in December of 2020, Christmas Eve of 2020, which kind of threw everything up in the air for a while. But we had a good estate plan in place. For those of you who are trying to decide whether to get involved in your estate planning, the answer is do it now, because it made life a lot simpler in a very difficult and emotionally loaded time. And so then so everything kind of went on hold, and then back about March, we began to pick it up again, and it took us a better part of a year. And so we finally sold in February of 2022. We have one dealer operation. We've got a heating and air conditioning business that's just growing in leaps and bounds. We are developing a 100-acre industrial warehouse complex in Suffolk, Virginia. We have medical buildings down in Florida. And and we got a couple other projects we're working on. So staying busy. I thought I was going to just kick back, but I'm still in it. And, we always talk about the convenience store industry and how great it is and, and how we're different than other industries. And we really are. I mean, I've been getting educated in these different areas that I've just discussed. And no, people don't share the way we share. It is true that we share our stuff with each other. And it's it's really healthy competition, I think, in the convenience store industry. And I think it's a great industry. In fact, I'm many of my best friends came out of the convenience store industry, and we still hang out together. I still go and visit them. So they don't come and visit me. I don't think I invite them. But no, so that's what I've been doing. I'm as busy as I've ever been, if not busier.
But like you said, and I've noticed it, other Jeff on this podcast, and I have been around NACS for, combined probably about 40, 50 years. And, you're right. No other industry really shares like this one. And I've seen, the friendships and the camaraderie that fosters amongst the retailers. Even if you just sit back and watch how you all interact at the show, you may only see those people once a year at the show, but you all just seem to pick up right where you left off. And it's really cool to watch and to be a part of it.
Well, I think, one of the things that NACS worked on, and I won't spend too much time on this, was engagement, and it was engagement with staff, engagement with each other, engagement with board, engagement with retailers, engagement with independent operators, small operators. And I think that's how you forge relationships, is having shared experiences. And, we did a lot of that, when I was involved. I know we traveled a lot together and, did a lot of fun things. So, and that helps forge lifelong relationships. And that's kind of what you get out of the show. You go to the show. To me, towards the end, I had a good staff, and they were doing the nitty gritty work at the show. I was to the point where I was sort of looking more at trends and the overall things. But to me, a lot of the value of the show was, all joking aside, was at the bar, because that's when you get to sit and, have conversations with people. I remember one time we were going to go into an initiative, and it was going to be costly, and it was going to be, one of those long ones that you really had to dedicate to. And I was sitting next to another retailer, and we had a couple of drinks, and we were getting deep into it, and he was going through the same thing I was going through. And I think by the end of the conversation, we both decided we weren't going to do it. And it was just one of those things where, you needed somebody to talk to who knew where your head was at. And, when you get to the show and, get to hang out and talk shop, you find other people whose head's in the same place as yours.
So that was an example of something that stopped you from doing something costly. Do you have any favorite memories of something that you took back from the NACS show beyond giving, a stupendous speech as chairman a couple times and leading the organization and things like that, but just some of the something what you took back from the show and it redefined your business, or it really refocused your business in a positive way instead of stopping something that could have cost you a lot of money?
I thought about that question, and, there were different products over the years and different initiatives that we did, but really at the end of the day, it was the relationships and being able to draw on them after the show, to have the ability to pick up the phone and call somebody. We towards prior to selling, we were really moving to being unbranded or Miller's branded. And we have a first-class image, and it's still there. And, our company was bought by Global, and they've adopted our image, and they just bought another company, and they're re-imaging them to Miller's. So getting to know, being able to spend time in that part of the show floor, and looking at designs and how that all works and how that all comes together, and then meeting, some of the best people in the world who do that, and ultimately hiring one of them to help develop our design, I think was huge. And that probably had the biggest impact. And I think if I had it to do over again, if I could have waited a little bit longer, we would have completed re-imaging our chain to all Miller stores using this image. And it in my mind, it's a world-class image. We got a lot of compliments on it, but more importantly, I've been in a lot of convenience stores. It stood up next to the major brands and the major independent brands.
Yeah. So final advice, right? Say you're a first timer heading to the NACS show. What's the one thing, you only get one out of like 100. What's the one thing you would suggest?
That's a hard one to answer. I would say the one thing is to get involved with the association. Because what I found, I came from the heating oil business. I was doing home heating oil, heating and air conditioning, and commercial fuels and lubricants, and then moved over to take over the convenience store business for our company. And I didn't know anything. And some people still think I don't know anything, but they all work for me, so you don't have to worry about that. I started going to NACS shows in 1994. 1997, I took over as president of the company, and I just knew I had to get involved because it seemed to me the progressive companies were all involved in the governance of the association or on committees. Back then they had, I think they still do now, but you could be on a committee and not be on a board. There was a lot of active involvement that way. And that to me is, you go to the show, you meet some NACS people, and then you find out how you can get involved. And it will pay huge dividends. A good friend who, on the vendor side, came to me. He had moved into the convenience store chain into the channel in his business. He said, well, what do I do? I said, I introduced him to somebody on the supplier board. He started doing the roundup committee. He worked his way up to the supplier board, and he made contacts, and he got to know people, and he got to see what was going on. And it's the same as a retailer. You all have seen, I know the two of you have, we've had large retailers and we've had small retailers on the board over the years and on the different committees. And I think the most impactful thing you can do if you want to grow your company is to get on a committee and get involved, because that's where the action is. You can walk around 400,000 square feet all day long and go home with a bag full of candy and a bunch of ideas in your head, but you really want to hang out with the people who are implementing them. And execution at the end of the day is what it's all about.
Well, for the record, we did not pay you, Jeff, to say that. But when we see you at the show this year, we'll buy you a drink or we'll buy you something. Thanks for the props there. But I think that's the same thing we hear from a lot of people. And for those who also want to see Jeff, if you don't see him at the show, it sounds like he's willing to have all kinds of people visit him in Virginia Beach. So if you're in the area, look him up. Guest house, do you have anything like that where they can stay and all that other stuff?
Yeah.
See, we're good here. This is the industry sharing together. Jeff, really want to thank you for just giving us some insights and how you approach the NACS show. You're technically out of the business, but you will be at the NACS show this year, and we're putting you to work in an ed session where you're sharing ideas about, how did you navigate things. So look for Jeff in that session. It's also available.
Let me interrupt and say one thing. There's one thing I wanted to get in that I forgot, and that is one of the things to do is to look at how other people look at stuff. That was one of my biggest learnings. That I would go to the show and I would go to these things and I'd go around and look at all this stuff myself. And then one day I saw the CEO of one of these big companies that was kicking my butt. And he was not looking at the same stuff I was looking at. He was looking at things completely differently. So I'm sorry to cut you off. I know you were wrapping up, but I'd written this down that I wanted to make sure I said that, is look at how other people look at stuff and learn from that. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's good advice. Cause I walked the floor one year when I was relatively new at NACS. And of course it's, adult trick or treating, right? And I walked the floor with someone who was on our board and asked him what he was looking for. And he said, display fixtures and lighting. Like, so it's, there's trends and then there's trends. So no, that's good advice. All right, Jeff, now you can wrap it up.
Yeah. So Jeff, you did a better job ending this. Let's have more of these conversations as part of the industry. And thanks for joining us today, Jeff. And thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.